Welcome to the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks Show, a series designed to give you insight into the world of self-publishing and marketing your books. Featuring your hosts, Shanon, the author behind the pen name S.C. Huston, Ben Pick, and Jamie, writing under the pen name J.M. Chaley. Join us several times each month when we interview authors about their self-publishing and marketing journeys, talk to industry leaders, and discuss books about writing, self-publishing, and marketing. Hi, everyone. I'm Shanon, writing under the pen name of S.C. Huston. I am a fantasy romance author with a passion for writing about broken characters who face adversity to become better versions of themselves. And today we are talking about a book, Networking for Authors. We're doing an informal book review by Dale L. Roberts. And I'm joined by several guests as we dive into this book. And we'll discuss what we've learned from the book and how we're applying that to our own author journeys. But before we have our guests introduce themselves, I am here also with one of my co-hosts, Ben Pick. So let us give some quick updates about what's going on in our lives. And I'll put it over to you, Ben.
Sure, no problem. I don't have anything planned. We are recording this about 3 months in advance. So between now and then, I will have gone through 3 separate in-person events. We have AwesomeCon, BalticCon, and then Kensington Road Bookshop. So 3 different festivals for selling my books, which I'll be pulling from sort of preemptively or from what I've experienced last year when it comes to networking with other authors in person. And I also give weekly productivity sprints on my YouTube channel at Writing to Write every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
So are you, for the conferences you're going to, you're taking some books with you, I'm assuming, and
Yes.
You're like, are you signing those and whatnot?
Yeah. I'll be in Artist Alley for all of them, although I guess Kensington Road Book Club, Kensington Road Book Festival, I forget what it's called, but it is more of an outdoor event and it's just nonstop vendors. So with BalticCon and AwesomeCon, I'll be in the explicit vendor area. And then there's, all kinds of other stuff there. There's all types of panels. I know AwesomeCon brings in a whole bunch of big names every year from across the comics and superhero world. I think this year they have a whole bunch from Star Wars. So various Star Wars shows and movies.
I mean, your book falls, I think, real neatly into that superhero category for sure.
Exactly.
So I just have a question. When you finish, because I know you've gone to a couple of these in the past, and I never thought to ask you before, but when you finish, I'm sure you have like books left over. Do you like sell these yourself, like online anywhere, or offer them with no?
No, I don't have a good way of doing that. I have a website on Squarespace, but I would need to. I like selling my books online on Amazon because it's very easy to do with taxes. It handles a lot of it for me, and then in person, I know how to handle the taxes individually, but I have no idea how to manage my own bookshop and do all the overhead for that. So I,
easy way, and it may or may not work for you because I tried it and I think I sold one book. And that is, I just made a PayPal link. I made a PayPal link that I advertised for a signed book. But that meant that I had to, get the notification and then ship it and everything. But if you do it only in the US, then it's only media mail, so it's only a few dollars to just ship it. But yeah, I don't know if that would be useful or not. But all right, for me, it is June 15th when this is coming out. My Kickstarter finished in the beginning of April, middle of March. So it was March 13th is when it closed. And at the moment it is in late pledges enabled. So people can do late pledges. But as soon as I finish fulfilling the Kickstarter, then I'm going to shut down the late pledges. And the AuthorTube Writing Conference is about to happen. And the reason why I wanted to do this book right about this time is because Dale L. Roberts is one of our special guest speakers for the AuthorTube Writing Conference. And he's going to have a great panel on Amazon ads, which I think is going to be useful for people who are using Amazon ads and want to learn how that works. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't do well with Amazon ads. I keep trying, but they're not great. So the more I can learn, the better. So I'm looking forward to that. And so now let's have our guests introduce themselves. And all of you guys have actually been on the podcast before multiple times, actually. But in case we do have some new listeners, or if people just need a refresher, tell us more about who you are, what you write, and anything you would like to share for others to find out more about you. And we'll start with Andy.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me, SD and Ben. Really happy to be here. And I basically run the YouTube channel, Publish with Andy. Small adjustment there from easy graphics to self-pub with Andy. Now it's just Publish with Andy because I want to share more about my process. So I've been very happy to share what I've used in the past and continue to use it. I share that, but basically I want to shift a little bit and share my journey as as well. So I'm writing fiction, which I hope to eventually one day, maybe, probably not, but hopefully get trad published. But that's a really difficult route. I accept that. But, I'm going to share everything, the highs and the lows. Right now, it's mostly the lows. So hopefully it'll be highs at some point. I also write nonfiction under a pen name. So yeah, feel free to check out my channel. That is me, published with Andy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Devon. I write fantasy and steampunk with snarky female leads and a splash of romance. I am also the founder of All Call Indie, which is a database of freelancers for indie authors, as well as the publicity chair for the AuthorTube Writing Conference coming this June. What I have coming up is a Kickstarter that's going to open on April 2nd with the next 2 books of my series, which is a duology within the 5-book series. So instead of ending on a cliffhanger, why not just get both books? It's just easier. Also for the Kickstarter, it is exclusive. I will have artwork in these books. I will have extra bonus side stories in each book that will not be in retail copies. So keep an eye out, give me a follow. And of course, you don't have to purchase anything, but just following me helps boost me up on the list for others to find me.
Hello, everyone. I'm author TILLERY, the Mistress of Horror, and I write, obviously, horror. And I call myself the Mistress of Horror because I'm married to all the other genres, but I'm always the Mistress of Horror, meaning my stories will have a dark incline to them, or they'll be completely soaked in darkness. I write horror, dark fantasy, and dark romance in most days, though I am a multi-genre author, so you may eventually see the other pens show up around me, which would be on my website at authordltillery.com. I run my YouTube channel under Author Tillery, where I put my journey as being a writer on there, also horror-based things, and I also do book reviews because I'm a big book buff, obviously, here. The writer that reads. I mean, I think that might be a normal thing, but then there are writers who don't read books as well, which has always been a little interesting on that one. But anyway, you can find me on all the socials under Mistress of Horror or Author Tillery, which is always my brand and stable. And as I always like to say, stay scared.
You didn't actually end your last stream with that, and so I put it in the chat. I don't know if you saw.
I know, I did. I was laughing.
But you also share some of your poetry on your channel too, don't you?
I do. I was actually a poet before I ever wrote a story when I was a child. And so I write poetry too, also has a dark incline. I did release a book, Thorns in My Heart, showing a wall collection size, 100 poems of my dark romances, completely themed around that. And I've released, I guess, I want to say 4 books at this point, but they were very short books, but books nonetheless. I think back in the old days, they didn't really put so much of a staple on it, the size of the book, and they still just called it, you released the book, So I have Brim Within, Fractals, Thorns in My Heart, which is my poetry collection, and then Cagliostro, Tale of the Light Virgin, which is my dark fantasy novel that came out in December. So that's the one I am currently doing still as this video releases on its virtual book tour. So you'll see me on different people's channels doing podcasts, interviews, and things like that. So keep an eye out for that. Just check my channel. It's always something there talking about it.
Oh, if you are doing a book cover and you're formatting it and you're going through the upload process and you're doing your metadata, yes, it's a book.
Right? That's why I agree 100 with you on that.
You're putting in all the stuff. You're doing everything you have to get it out there to the world. So
yep. I agree.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what the AuthorTube Writing Conference is, I did mean to clarify, and then I just totally gloss over it. And the AuthorTube Writing Conference is an online virtual conference on YouTube, completely free. And it is essentially a major collaboration between large and small channels coming together over a 3-day period to talk all things writing and publishing. And we try to make sure that we can get people on board to present all publishing paths, so traditional and indie publishing, and some are hybrids and small indie presses as well. well. So for anyone who's interested in that, that will be coming up very shortly. I mean, it's like 2 weeks basically after this comes out. So yeah, be looking for that. We have some wonderful people on board. All right, so now let's talk about networking for authors. All of us have already done a video review on this book, and we actually have a playlist of it on YouTube. I will be including that link in the show notes for everyone. And so today's discussion, we're trying to approach it maybe from a fresh angle if we can. But before we dive in, I do like to start by reading the book's description. You're ready to build your author career, but how do you expand your network? What's the secret to forging lasting industry connections? And networking for authors, strategies to supercharge your writing career, Dale L. Roberts delivers a practical guide to mastering networking. Discover step-by-step strategies to connect authentically with industry professionals and elevate your brand. Inside, you'll find proven methods for effective networking, tips for a compelling author bio and online presence, confidence-boosting advice for introverts, strategies for making the most of conferences and events, insights on leveraging social media and virtual platforms, and techniques for using email, podcasts, and videos to enhance your reach. So to answer the question whether or not this book fulfilled the promise of the premise, I would say yes. It definitely delivers on even on each of these points that it has. It goes into depth on all of these, including, and I think I knew that Dale was an introvert, but he goes into, what does that look like networking for an introvert, and gives it from his perspective, which was really eye-opening for me. So I believe this book is definitely, the book description fits exactly what you're going to find in the book. What do you guys think? Did it deliver on the promise to you? And what are your general thoughts about it?
I think that it did deliver 100%. I did do the book review, and I talked a little bit more about the help it's given me so far. Definitely 100 delivered. I took so many notes from this book to help me with networking, and I'm an introvert, like maybe more of a chosen introvert these days, but I definitely was like, yeah, introvert section. And then I saw the non-introvert section. I was like, I don't know if I'll be doing any of those. I even said that in my review, but I'm like, I did take notes for that section as well. So this is the case in the future if I felt less introverty. That's not a word, but I would probably lean on it because it had a lot of information in both those sections, 100. So yeah, definitely feel it delivered. This got a 5-star from me anyway, because it was like, whoa. Every time Dale releases a book, it's like he's giving it to you. So yeah,
I agree completely. And in my individual video, I don't want to go too much into it, but I did discuss how Dale mentioned the right and wrong ways to make connections. But I can summarize the book up in, I think, 4 simple words, which is just don't be a jerk. But yeah, he goes through so many different tools and techniques to get over being an introvert, to actually make that first connection. And Shanon, with this channel, I mean, there are plenty of times where I have seen a podcast that I was interested in, or had a specific problem that I was trying to address within my own writing or publishing journey, and you have pushed me to bring somebody onto the channel to address that very specific problem. And it's the exact same thing. Like, I will message them usually through YouTube, or they'll have like a little email link at the bottom, and I'll say, hey, by the way, I saw your video, I like what you do you want to come on and have us ask you a few questions and we can pick your brain? So it's very simple and direct way to make a connection. But there's also going to actual conferences, in-person events, having a Kickstarter go through. I mean, all of that are different ways to meet other authors and to form those initial connections. And Dale's book goes through a wonderful way of just putting it on paper and reinforcing good habits.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, for me, it does deliver, in my opinion. Honestly, I don't remember what I put in my videos. So please go watch it and then let me know what I put in the video. But yeah, it does deliver. I do have a little catchphrase for it, and it's not too far off from Ben's. And it is basically serve others first, and that's the main thing that really stuck out for me. So if you help other people without expecting something, and also what Ben said, don't be a jerk. Basically, like, I see it a lot. People just come in, they're like, I mean, the worst ones are do me a solid before I even know who you are. Okay, the next level is do me a solid even though it's got nothing in it for you. So those are kind of my pet peeves. But yeah, I think if you help others first and then karma or the circle of life, whatever you want to call it, positive attraction kind of thing. It will eventually come back to you, I believe. So yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from that one. And yeah, it does deliver, in my opinion, especially for introverts. I'm a huge introvert. And for those who are listening only, I'm actually an avatar on the video. So I am a huge introvert. So if you're an introvert, you definitely want to read the book.
Definitely the same for me. I am also an introvert and I understand the importance of in-person events. YouTube is very easy. It is a chat. You're not necessarily on screen all the time, but the in-person events, I found somebody to come with me. So I signed up for 2 book cons and she has agreed to come with me, and she is extroverted and she says she will do the talking for me. All I have to do is sit back and look pretty and sign books. So baby steps and stepping outside of my comfort zone. But yeah, that is what I'm currently wrapping my head around, because I don't like sitting in front of an audience or even approaching other tables. So it definitely helped me with that.
I definitely feel like we the rest of us need to come up with catchphrases now. So, but yes, and I think just because we're talking about in person, and Dale does a really good section on in person, especially if you're an introvert, I don't think I could still push myself to do in person. And he gives so many different ways that you can network without needing that in person at conferences and stuff. So, don't feel like that's what the book is all about, because it's not. Some people have done really great with it. Ben has got himself out there. I know, Ben, you're a self-proclaimed introvert as well, right? Yeah. And so he's done great with it, getting out there the last couple of years and going to different cons. I cannot do it for some reason. I'm so big. I'd rather not walk out my front door if I can help it.
I feel you, SD 100 on that.
Yeah.
I came from the world of being in stage. I was a performing artist. So I ran conventions, like big ones at hotels. Like, had like 7 rooms, upstairs and downstairs. So being at a convention wasn't a big deal, but now I'm like chosen to not do it. So I was like really happy with the introvert aspects. And he gave both. So he was thinking about everybody, which I really enjoyed. That he wasn't like, you need to get out there. You better go, But he was like,
we're saying that only one way was the right way.
Right. He gave it both ways. So that because he knows there's different people in the world, and some people just don't want to, or they cannot in some cases. So I really do respect him for like giving us the options and not forgetting about anybody.
Right.
And I will say that I have a few key advantages when it comes to me wanting to be at those cons. First of all, I used to go to Awesome Con as an attendee plenty of times, so I just think it's pretty cool to be a vendor there now. And in a pre-2020 world, I would professionally be going through all these different security conferences. So I got kind of familiar with just hanging out there and meeting new people, and from a professional standpoint. So
I think they're fun. They are.
Fun is one word for it. I will say it's be wined and dined occasionally, so that is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the 2 big things that I took away from this book that I talked about in my video was, one, the word networking. And Dale had told me the name of this book like a year before he published it. And I was like, networking, that's kind of scary. Networking for authors, I don't like the title. He kept with it. But I'm sure it's doing great for him, because I think he's won a few awards. So networking is one word that I had to kind of talk about. And then the other one that I could not say was genuine. Did I say that right? Genuine? Okay. So, and I think that's what it comes down to. I never thought of it as networking. So I never had like networking goals in my mind. And that brings us to our first question about our networking goals, because I didn't think about it in terms of networking. I just thought about in terms of, I want to meet more authors. Who's out here? Who's doing what? What are they doing? How are they doing it? What's working for them? What's not working for them? Thus, the podcast was one part of that. So, and then the conference was another part, because bringing together all these people who have experience talking about these things. So Dale L. Roberts does emphasize the importance of identifying your networking goals, which I've become a little bit more aware of now. Not that I'm labeling what I'm doing as networking, as I didn't before. But did reading this book change or refine your networking goals as an author? And if so, how?
It did change my perspective. Also opened up my view of networking, like you were mentioning, because again, like you said, I didn't realize I was networking. Like in some cases, because I would just be in the community connecting with people just on YouTube, then through email sometimes, then the repertoire would build up over some years or whatever. And I didn't realize that was part of my networking that was happening, which of course when I read Dale's book and he mentions this very aspect, I'm like, oh, okay. So I was so I was already doing this networking thing, so that definitely opened my eyes to, okay, well, I'm glad that I was on the right track for that type of networking, because I think that's my favorite type of networking. Just the natural, I call it the natural networking. It kind of happened over time, and also building relationships with individuals that I really enjoyed talking to. So I really liked that's what I kind of grabbed from that, the natural aspects of networking that could occur if done that way. And as feeding off what Andy said about not expecting a bunch of stuff in return from someone, it can happen naturally because of your relationships that you're building. And when I read Dale's book and he talked a little bit about that, I was like, oh, a bell went off, a light went off, okay, I like that kind of networking. I don't feel as pressured or afraid in a way to cold call people, though that's a part of networking too, reaching out to people you don't know. I mean, you did that from the start, really. If you naturally talk to people, you kind of naturally reached out to them, but you didn't know them at first. I like that aspect of type of networking, so I really kind of been trying to build in on that style more, and take some of the notes that Dale mentioned about, reach out to people, follow them, see what they're doing, and then, really put in that you trying to connect with them, and not just be like, oh, I want something from you. So, that was my take on that question.
That could be your catchphrase, natural networking.
Yeah, that's what I was going for with that. I really like it.
Coming from a retail background, a lot of what he said in there about networking was spot on, because my original goal was to be a marketer for, department stores and things like that. So it all resonated with me, and I was already using those techniques online through the YouTube and Discord communities to, reach out and talk to people not only about my books, but I'll call indie. And everything worked. It really did. And cold calling, not really what cold calling was for me. So I would just reach out. It's like, hey, I like your book. I see that you're also offering this other service. Would you be interested in joining I'll Call Indie and maybe, do an author swap? I met a lot of really amazing authors doing author swaps for reviews.
I think that is a key takeaway that he kind of touches on a little bit in his book, with what Ben was talking about, how being on the podcast, he's, been able to reach out to other people. If you have something that you can offer that's value, hey, I've got this website where you can, advertise your services. Hey, I've got this podcast where you can come on and talk about you. I think that really does help with the networking for sure, because you're offering that value up front.
So I didn't really have any networking goals as such. So having read the book, I'm more conscious about the goals now. So I'll be honest, I don't have networking goals. I just try and help people, which is why I put content on my YouTube channel to reach as many people as I can. But yeah, I think things like checking in with people that you get along with, I think that will probably be something I make more of an effort with, because I'm just not very good at keeping in touch with people. And then, like you guys, I'll probably try and nurture a longer term relationship, not expecting anything. Again, if I can help, I'm more than happy to help. But, help doesn't always mean buy my book, right? It doesn't mean buy my stuff. Help can be, do you know someone, connecting people? Help could mean, oh, there's a resource that maybe I know of that you were looking for. So I think the help thing is really huge. That's my huge takeaway with Dale's book. But particularly, don't ask for anything in return, especially if you're not on a first name basis. As part of the etiquette thing that, as an introvert, I'm not very good at social stuff, right? So the etiquette bit was really good as well. Anyway, goals wise, I am trying to make more of an effort to keep in touch and network of people. And I'm also trying to keep in mind the etiquette bit. So don't go in guns blazing saying, yo, what about politics? That's probably not the best thing to start off with. Maybe it's more like, so how's your book doing, or whatever it is, or how's the weather? Is it still cold or something, And then just move on from there. It doesn't have to be an active thing either. You don't have to like ask them something every single day. It could be like a very light touch, every few weeks or months even. And just say, hey, how's it going? Been a while. What have you been up to? And just that kind of keep in touch, networking with etiquette is my goal, because I didn't have goals before.
Is that why you check out on me sometimes? It's because of Dale's book?
Yeah, sometimes, but no, I was doing that before.
I know you were. I'm just making a joke out of it.
But yeah, I am trying to be more conscious about it.
Yeah.
Because there's also a thing like there's only so much we can do in 24 hours a day. Even like if you have especially a large network, if you contacted every single person every single day, you would literally not have enough minutes or seconds to do that. So you do have to be strategic about where you put your time, and also maybe just reach out to people who you connect with more than others first as a priority, and then you can work your way down the list. So yeah, that's kind of I'm trying to make it a goal and trying to do that.
It's been a minute since I've read the book, because I read it last year and I've made some notes from it, but I haven't read through all of it again. But did he mention that if you're thinking of someone at that moment, just reach out and say, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, I think he mentioned that.
Yeah, I was thinking that's where I got it from. And I don't think I recall those words are like in my head and like, oh, I'm thinking of this person. I should just reach out and say, hey, how's it going? Just because I'm thinking of them. And because we do get busy. We get very, very busy. And sometimes you just need to, and that makes people feel good too, to know that you're on someone else's mind, that because we all are stuck in our world and we don't think anyone else is thinking of us, So I think that it's really nice when someone else is thinking about you and, wondering how you're doing. So.
And it never fails. An author always wants to be contacted about their books.
True.
That's very true.
I don't know if you guys do this, and maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't know. Maybe you guys can let me know. But if I see like a funny meme that reminds me of someone, I will, or a short video clip like Reels or something, I'll be like, I'll send it to them. So even though I haven't spoken with them or messaged them for ages, I'll be like, okay, this Skeletor meme is you, basically. And hopefully, that breaks the ice a little bit because you haven't contacted them for ages, and it puts maybe a smile on their face, I hope. Obviously, don't like send inappropriate stuff, if you don't have that relationship with people. But yeah, I tend to choose like my memes or reels, and maybe I'll send it to them and say, this made me think of you, or something like that.
I like that, Andy.
Now another caveat to that is like, don't do too much, because I have a few people who send me like memes every single day, sometimes more than one.
Popular SD, what are you gonna do?
I can't keep up with it. So, I try, but there's just no way. I only have so many minutes in the day. So,
and I'll feed off of what Andy was saying as like a proof thing, because there's different authors I've come across over the years, and even people that I mentored, because I was in an author mentor thing for a while. One of the authors whose books I've purchased, I've reviewed some of his books and things like that, he completely stopped communicating. Completely, which was fine. I mean, everybody gets busy, which you get, everybody's busy. And I think it was probably like 2 years. 2 years I hadn't heard from him at all since I think he got married, and then he didn't like release anything else for a while. So it was like 2 years, and then randomly I got a message from him, which he probably sent to multiple people, I would imagine, because it was a thing he was doing to raise money for another thing or something like that. And I think he just messaged everybody. And I'm like, in my head, immediately, I'm like, dude, I haven't heard from you in 2 years. You want me to donate to something? I don't even know what it is, So it's kind of like that initial thing that, yeah, people completely can forget that you even exist, which everyone's world is so vast for themselves that they don't necessarily remember just even people that they collabed with previously or talked to a lot, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, I missed his initial message, though I would have been happy to donate, which I went to, but it was already like over because it was like a quick thing. But it was like, because he had not messaged me in 2 years, it had him bumped down so far that I didn't get to see it, which he missed my donation because of it. So kind of like, if you do forget people you worked with previously, to like completely forget 2 years, then they, even though they could be a person that you can network with, you lost probably the connect, even with the algorithm, because of the messages can get bumped because you haven't messaged them in forever. So it's kind of like trying to keep those natural, relationships together is kind of important too, especially if you've worked with people before. It's kind of good to keep maybe a log of the different people that you actually have went to a second type of relationship level with and working together, so that way you don't completely forget like who that was, because then they might not be able to connect with you again, and that type of thing.
So for me, I kind of talked about already to answer this question is that I just wanted to be more intentional with my networking goals. And I think this really comes in my mind. It's like, I've always kind of like had a mindset of like, let me just see, because I'm not thinking about it as networking. I'm just like, maybe I can do this. Let me see if it works. And, so now I want to be more intentional, but I am in the process of changing my life. And I think it's going to be like a year. So my author life, because I do spend a lot of my author life networking with authors and doing things with authors, that I want to build more of that networking with potential readers and my readers. So I am thinking about how can I reach them and network with them in different ways. And I do, because I have a street team and it's not very big, it's 3 people. But they've said, what can I do to help out? And so I keep in contact with the same thing. If I'm thinking of one of them, I've done the same thing where I reach out, hey, how's it going? How's your horses? One of them has horses. I hope everything's, they had the horses always get scared with the storm. How's it, how are your horses with the storm that just went through? So I think we can think about this not just in our author career, but also with our readers and how we can network with them authentically and care about our readers and care about the people that we're working with as the other authors as well. So I don't know if I made sense. Did I make sense there?
You did. You made sense. And I can contest to that, given something that was an error that I did myself. For my book that's currently out, Cagliostro, I had a beta team that read the book before it came out to the Kickstarter. And I think I started with about the general, like you have a lot of people, but then you'd only end with X amount of people who read it. And, and I think I had at least like 8 left after the 20 initial who started. I didn't stay connected with them. Some of them are obviously like close friends or other authors who read my stuff anyway that I do on a regular, but there were some in it that know me, but I didn't message them on a regular. So then it becomes a thing where, okay, the book releases and then they have read it. So then reviews would be great, obviously from the beta readers as well. But if you didn't stay in contact with them and then reaching out and be like, oh, could you remember the book you read like 2 years ago? Could you leave a review for that? It becomes like, they probably be like, no, not really. You know what I mean? So if you don't do that, connecting with your readers, like you were just mentioning, then it could become a thing where they feel like left out in a way because they were your beta readers or your ARC readers or whatever the case may be in this case of connecting with your readers. And that's an error on my part because I should have made sure I had a group and everything like that. I hadn't been checking in because, I do like a lot of things. It wasn't intentional, but it also, I still didn't stay on top of it. So that's just something for somebody to know that we all do make mistakes and do errors in this process of learning. So when I read Dale's book, it was kind of like, yeah, I need to do better. That's why I said this book, all Dale's book has like this thing where it kicks you in the pants, wakes you up. Like, listen, you need to do better. That's all. That's what I get. I'm like, I need to do better. So yeah, I definitely stand off of what you were saying, SD, connecting with the readers more as well. It's a lot of work, but definitely something we need to discuss and do.
And I think having a newsletter that you regularly send out to, and I do mine just once a month, except for around promos and my Kickstarters, I think that's a good way because a lot of my beta readers and alpha readers, they come from my newsletter list. So by having that, monthly newsletter, I think that keeps in touch. And I do, when I write my newsletters, I think of those who have already like had communication with. I think of them as I'm writing my newsletter, like I'm writing to them so that they would feel invested in some way. And I get a lot of responses to my newsletters. So based on that, I don't know if that helps any. I get your newsletter, DL, but do you send it out regularly?
Do you send it out? It's once a month. It's on the 3rd Monday of the month. So 3rd or 4th. Yeah, I think it's the 4th Monday now. So I switched the schedule a while back. But yeah, it is once a month because I think I was doing originally like twice a month. I think I was on the beginning and the end. And it just seemed like it was too much, if that's a thing. I know some people do a lot more than that. But considering where I was writing and how I was releasing things, it made sense for me to do once a month and not over-bombard people. But yeah, some of my beta readers are some of my newsletter members, but some of them weren't. And some people just don't want to necessarily join a newsletter. So I tell them all the time, they're probably like, I wish she shut up. But that I think it would have helped if I would have stayed on top of the group on top of that. But yeah, Getting people to do the newsletter thing is a whole nother nightmare, but we'll get to that, I'm sure, because Dale does mention it.
Alrighty, well, let's move on to the next question, which is the book provides strategies for both online and offline networking, which we've kind of talked about a little bit with being on YouTube and going to conferences. But which method for you do you find personally more effective? And did Dale's advice change your perspective on one or the other?
I definitely think in person is more effective, but I am more reliant on online communications. So, for example, due to recent issues, I have uninstalled Facebook from my phone. So I no longer get Facebook Messenger, which is how one other author contacts me. And so I might check Facebook like once a week, once every couple of weeks. And so he'll send me stuff and it'll take me a while before I actually even see it. And then I know that he's like waiting for a response. So I'll keep Facebook on up on my computer for like a day. But if he doesn't get back to me, then it'll get lost, 2 weeks, 2 weeks later or whatever. Whereas in person, I have been at a conference and there was just, there's 30 vendors in a room, but there was one other guy who was there. And then 9 months later, we're basically sitting next to each other at a different conference and like, hey, I know you. And so then, we had met each other before because you kind of meet everybody in the same room. And because we had that personal connection, I knew that guy 9 months later without even really thinking about it. So I do think that in person is more effective. It's a lot easier to draw those connections. And going along with Dale's advice from the book, a lot of times he had met somebody in person at a conference or wherever, and then followed up with them online so that it's easier to, I guess, reaffirm is probably a way of saying it, but there's a better word that I can't think of off the top of my head, but sort of reaffirm those communications and connections the next time they see each other in person. And so he would maybe meet someone offline and then take it online, and that way it would sort of strengthen their relationship. But I'm just bad at communicating in general, so I'm not a good example.
Well, I think you are a good example of being authentic. Now, I haven't met you in person, but other authors in our circle have met you in person, and they talk about you. They say, "Oh, he's so much the same. The Ben you see on screen is the Ben you meet in person." So you're good at being authentic.
I do appreciate that. That is good to know.
I found that since I haven't gone, out in the world to connect with anyone, except you, Shanon, because you came to visit me, that was great. The online strategies have been working more for me, especially discovering, new channels, new author channels to visit, and just saying, hey, by the way, this is also what I do.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a little. I'm gonna throw a little spanner in the works here and say in person is best, but it's not for everyone. I mean, it's not just the introvert thing, because in person there's only so much time that you can allocate to going to these conferences. Whereas online, literally, you click a few buttons, you tap a few keys, and then you got a message that spans to thousands, millions of people, potentially. Assuming you go viral, then maybe hundreds or millions, that kind of thing. But basically, that is, in my opinion, the limitation of in-person, because you can only reach a smaller audience at any one time, which is fantastic to build your network, but there's a limitation on how big that network is going to be. So I would probably guess you need a combination of both, which is kind of what Dale does. Whereas for me, I'm a huge introvert. It's only going to be online most likely for me until that changes in the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there is a limitation. But if you can make those like in-person connections, and then you hit them up like months later with something preferably memorable that you've shared, like some kind of thing. So like you guys have been to my channel, or I've been to your channel, and whenever food comes up, I'm like, cake, no, the no, and coriander, no, I don't do that. And then that kind of becomes my thing that you guys can remember me by. So if you have that in-person connection and you have on top of that a thing that kind of connects you to, that's a really powerful like combination. And then they may propagate your whatever you're doing. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but basically it's a limitation on numbers, but that limitation, if you do it right, can expand your network without you being there. So you meet one person and then that person may propagate your stuff, in person. Whereas if you're online, then you can reach more people, assuming you get the reach, then you're less limited by the one-on-one interaction.
There was one thing I forgot to mention as my baby steps for getting out in the world as a person. I did go to a couple of indie bookstores to drop my books off for them to put on their shelves. and interacted with the owners, and of course, purchasing and everything like that. Nerve-wracking for me because I don't like talking to strangers, but I also frequent these bookstores on a daily, so I might as well actually admit that I am an author. And here's my book.
Well, like I said, I'm a chosen introvert nowadays, and that's mostly because I'm a germaphobe. So, become more of a germaphobe as the days are going on. So that's kind of what stops me from going to conferences. Because I told my mom the other day, I said that if this had been 6 years ago or something like that, I would have been at every conference I could manage, because that's what I always did before for dance. So I do miss the interaction aspects, because I was always a on stage type person and like out there. But since I changed to more introverted, I really did take away from Dale's book all the introverted aspects of online, utilizing your social medias, which I was already doing, but it just solidified more of the options that I have to do those things. I did, from listening to his book and everything, I did start reaching out and following more booktubers that I hadn't followed before. I did look into more of them, because I did follow some, and watching their channels, watching their content. I even made a schedule to do it, so that way I could be more, make myself follow this schedule so I could do it, because you try to make time for the things you need to do, because time can get away from you very quickly. And I took that from, reading Dale's book about, like, just try to utilize following people, seeing what they're doing, interacting for real, and not, again, just worrying about what you are trying to put out there. So that's one thing that I did that I really utilized from the online introvert aspects of the book. And like I said, I did take notes from like the in-person thing, and I really want to check out some of the writing conferences, because they look really, really cool. And I'm a big book person, so I probably would have to take like savings to go, because I want to buy every author's book. That's the only thing that holds me back from going to them, because being a germaphobe is a little difficult, because once you go to big conferences, more likely, like, it's always going to be people from all different places, and I'm just like, no. So any online aspects, because I actually just recently found out about a conference that is in my state that isn't far from me, that a author started, and she actually gives the option for some online aspects for you to get involved with the convention itself, which I really appreciated, because some conventions you do want to get involved in that are in person, and if you're the type of person that's not going to go, or also maybe some people can't travel because money is a thing, you know what I mean? So there are some great ones that I would love to go to, but even if I was going to in person, I would have to pick at least one, or not be able to go to one because of the cost to go, So definitely leaning more into the introverted online aspects of the thing. I have utilized a lot of those things for sure, and the online aspects compared to the in-person. It's just not for me right now, but I definitely toot the horn, and I will live vicariously through, like, Ben, for instance. As he goes, I will check out his stuff. I always look
You're off
forward
to a bad start if I'm your bar.
You've done that for me too, Ben.
Right, we just wait and we like, what Ben doing? Where Ben going? So but like that, I live vicariously, which I think is not bad. If you're not going to go, at least you get to see what other people are doing. So I'm excited that SD will be going to Author Nation and Dale, so I can see when they come back what footage they have, who they met. So yeah, that's just how I am. So I really did take that the really online introvert aspects for myself, which is working out pretty good, I must say.
Yeah, and Dale makes a strong case for having that in-person networking. And I have been going to author conferences. I took a little bit of time off, but I had started in 2022, and like every conference, I feel you on this deal. Every conference I came back to, I came back sick. The first one I came back sick with COVID. Next one I came back with the flu. I was like, until I went to 3 conferences last year, and the third conference I came back and I was not sick. And I was
I
like,
already got everything. I'm good,
yeah.
y'all. I'm good. But I would
Little
double
things.
mask anyway. Like I'm a double masker anyway if I go out. 'Cause I work out in
Yeah.
the field, so
Mhm.
I do double mask. But it's just like I don't have control of the convention. So when I did want to do an in-person book signing at some point, and I'm like, they gonna be looking at me like I'm crazy. But hey, I'm okay with that. But I'm like, listen, these are the masks for this one because this is a dark fantasy one, and I don't need to see half of your face. So you going these Cagliostro masks going to be up in here. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
there's aspects of ways to avoid it, but yeah, that you was like you already got all the things, so you was good for once you got to the
Yeah.
You're off to a bad start if I'm your bar.
You've been that for me too, Ben. Yeah, and Dale makes a strong case for, having that in-person networking. And I have been going to author conferences. I took a little bit of time off, but I had started in 2022, and like every conference, I feel you on this deal. Every conference I came back to, I came back sick. The first one I came back sick with COVID. Next one I came back with the flu. I was like, until I went to 3 conferences last year, and the third conference I came back and I was not sick. And I was like, that's my little thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 And I think there's definitely a difference between like what I'm doing. I've been going to author conferences. So we're talking about authoring, whether writing, publishing. The one I went to, the third one last year that I went to was all about, making sure you don't burn out and understanding your author process so you don't burn out. And it was a really good one. That was with Brian Cohen, which is different from what Ben is doing. And he's probably the smarter one in this aspect because he's going to the conferences where he's connecting with fans and readers, So both are good. You need to have your author connections. You need to have your reader connections. I've spent a couple years now building a networking group with other authors, and I do want to continue it because there's always new people to meet, and I love meeting new people online and not really in person. But I really want to concentrate more on the reader side, and which would mean I'd need to gear toward going to some of these conferences like what Ben's going to. But I just don't know. I just I feel so much better being online than in person. So it's something I've had to get my mind wrapped around eventually.
I really feel that. But I wanted to give this advice for people who are going to go to events since I ran events and I was a vendor coordinator before I had to pass it to another person because I just was doing too many hats, as a lot of us do. That if you are going to set up a table and if you're going to have your banner and you're going to have your books and you're going to have all your things once you put that together, the worst thing you can do is to just sit still. And I'm going to say that from experience of training my vendors who would complain that they didn't make any money, they didn't have any interactions. And that was because they felt that they couldn't approach you because of how you may have just sat there. Now, if you have a team of people that's like bringing people to you and going out or talking and things like that, that's great. One of the ways to help with this, I would say to at least have like some handouts that you can at least go hand out to people, or maybe just have something. I've seen one of the guys on here on YouTube. He talked about it, and I'm gonna say his name wrong. Andrew. What is this? I want to say his name because he went to some conferences and he had a great idea because he had a tablet playing with his book trailer on it.
Oh yeah, I've seen something like that.
Yes,
Well,
and he had the book trailer playing on it, so he didn't necessarily have to be like, trying to be out because maybe he's not, you know what I mean? And you may not be the type to do that, but I just wanted to say that you want to do something to make those people stop or make them pay attention to you if you're going to be going out to different types of conferences, no matter what kind it is.
yeah.
Because people, if you just sit there, you're going to probably be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed because they're going to just think nothing. They don't know,
I think the best way for me is that I'm probably going to dress up. Now, for those who are audio only, they're not going to see what I put up here, but I would probably dress as one of my moon fae. So I've done this for Halloween.
Yes.
So I'd probably do this. And I think that would be easier than, playing a character, I think is easier than being you. Sitting at your thing.
Right. That's a great aspect too. Just something that would grab people's attention. And that is another thing. But anyway, I'm just spewing some nonsense, but
Well,
I just want to say that.
Also,
Have you
cheap
ever
tricks
get close
work too.
Say again?
Cheap tricks work too. So if you're indoors, have like a little bowl of candy, and if you're outdoors, you can have a bowl of like dog food or something for people to walk by. And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So one of Dale's networking strategies is building a press kit. How many of us actually have one? And do you think it's an essential tool for self-published authors? Why or why not?
I do have a press kit. It is not nearly good enough. That is something that based on Dale's book, I need to make a lot more robust. I have a couple of things that I swap interchangeably because each place I go has like slightly different requirements, but it's not a full-on press kit. What I have is basically just like maybe more focused blurb or like a little bit about me or, little tweaks here and there, but nothing that's a major overhaul. And that is something that I definitely do need to work on to improve how I am perceived by people who would be coming up to talk to me.
Well, I think you can, work on it little by little, just like starting a newsletter list. You start off small and figuring out what works for you and then just keep adding to it.
Exactly.
Yep. I have a press kit. I tend to do a press kit for each one of my books. I have my own personal media kit for my brand online. The brand online kit was recent because of talking with Dale, our collab that we're working on. And he was like, I kind of need this. I'm like, okay. So I put it together. It wasn't an overly big deal for me to do it because, again, I came from entertainment performance. So it wasn't anything out of my element to do and put together, but that's the new thing that I did do is make a my brand media kit for like me. So all my social medias and things like that. And the press kits that I have one built for Cagliostro because it was my newest book. And that it's I don't know what would be considered robust, but I have like the different folders in the zipped folder for being able to send out to people. And I follow through with, Dale near the end of the book talks about making sure you have a media kit. It's good to have a press kit, media kit. And I'd made smaller ones for my smaller books. It almost was based to like what the size of the book was for me. So I have like some of the artwork in there. I have, I think, the first chapter in there, or at least excerpt from the book. I have the author folder, where it's just, my bio and the pictures that I use on my social medias. And then I have like just different things broken down for the book, about the book, if this is a press kit specifically for the book. So yeah, I did. When Dale said that, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Let me go do that real quick, fast. You know what I mean? And that helped me for when I do the interviews with the podcast and then have booktubers that I reach out to. I can just have that press kit. If it's particularly about me trying to talk about my book, then I can have that press kit for each book that whatever the interview is about. And I can just, bam, when I do the initial email, I can have that attached and send them the press kit. So yeah, I jumped all over that. I was like, let me get that done.
I didn't even think of using it for that at all. I don't have a press kit at all. I only have one book published at this time, and I don't plan on putting the next two books that are in my Kickstarter for retail out until probably January. So it's definitely something to think about, and it's definitely easier to just, when I'm on a podcast or another YouTube channel like this, just say, here's my link to put in there, and everything is there. That would come in handy. I'll start working on that after this Kickstarter.
Yeah, I don't have a press kit. I really should. I've done press releases, and it's not that far off from that, really. I really think, especially if you have a website, and most people probably should, because you want to maintain your own audience, that kind of thing, in case anything goes wrong. God forbid, because it can. It can and does happen quite regularly. But yeah, press kit. I really should have one. It's also a brand thing. Like, it gives a very professional perception, regardless of how many, how big you are in your mind or how you're perceived. If you've got like a section on your website that says press kit, media, or something like that, they're like, oh, well, obviously people are contacting this person, and that may or may not be true, but it gives that impression that you are, professionally at that level, I guess. So yeah, I really should have one, which I've just added it to my to-do list. So thank you for the reminder.
I do not have a press kit, and I really should. It is something that's been on my to-do list for a long time. And I think for those of us who've really got into the writing and publishing, especially with day jobs and families, there's so many things we have to do as an author that it's hard to figure out, okay, which one do I need to do right now? And you have to just make priorities for some. And so I do recognize that it would be useful. It's really would be useful for the authors we bring onto the podcast, especially those that we don't really know a lot about, because I do a deep dive, but if they like gave me a press kit with like, here are the things to ask me, that would be great. And then I wonder what I've always wanted to do is like, I guess I could make a press kit about me as an author and what I'm doing for networking with other authors and whatnot. But I've always been more interested in creating like those media kits for each book. So like if a book club wants to read your book, and I've seen these on authors' websites where they have it right there, you can download it. It's a downloadable PDF file that has questions that that book clubs can ask about your book if they're reading your book. Of course, that assumes that people are reading your book. But like Andy says, if it's there, people will probably wonder, oh, there must be something about this if there's questions about it that for book clubs. And so maybe get more people involved. It's definitely something I want to do for sure. I just have not done it yet. So, all right. So we're going to come to our final question before we wrap up, which is based on what you've learned from networking for authors. What is your best tip or trick for an author looking to build a strong, sustainable network in the self-publishing industry?
Put yourself out there. That's really what it comes down to. So I'll talk about what I know. When I did my very first conference, it was at Balticon, and I was well out of my depths, but I was sitting next to these two wonderful, wonderful authors who had been on the circuit for decades, and they sort of took me under. They could see that I was freaking out a little bit, and so they sort of took me under their wing. And now every time I go there, I stop by their booths, I say hi, we catch up, and it just helped out so much to have that. And sure enough, a couple of years later, I was in kind of that helping role for this other author who, she was struggling a little bit. She didn't know necessarily how to set up her table or how to do anything on her own, and so I not that sounds worse than it was, but she was definitely like uncertain because it was her first conference that she was selling her book at, and so she didn't really know. She was asking us a whole bunch of questions and asking us for advice and what to do next time. And so I think I just gave her as much of advice as I could, and I sort of walked her through some things like, this is, I have like my little PayPal chip reader thing that I had set up, and I explained to her, where I got that from and how, you can bring it next time and all this other stuff like that. So things to improve upon next time.
So you paid it forward. What you learned, you pass on to the next person. Yeah,
exactly.
I would say my tips and trick would be, don't be afraid to reach out to others in your community, and don't forget that your community is there to help you. I really did gather that from Dale's book. Like, try your best not to be afraid to reach out for those interviews, for those book reviews. And sometimes people are afraid to even ask for book reviews. And I think that a lot of our own fear can hold us back because of getting no's. It's okay for people to say no to you. It's not the end of the world. So I think that would be my best tip and trick, is to do your best, is to put yourself out there, and don't be afraid of no. No is part of life. It's fine. So you just go on to the next.
And I always say it's always a no until you ask. So
that was going to be mine. That was, what's the worst they can say? No. You have millions of other people to reach out to build friendships with, even creating your own community online or in person. There's so many avenues you can take.
Yeah, for me, it's a couple of things. It's do what you can where you are with what you have, like right now. So if, like me, you're an introvert, maybe just start with your friends that you maybe haven't spoken with or contacted for ages, and then move on from there, outward. And the other one was dealing with setbacks. Let's face it, we're not always going to get along with everyone. That's just human nature, right? Personalities clash. We don't like certain people. That's just normal. So dealing with setbacks, something we have to try and handle as best we can. And there's a lot of great advice in the book itself, like, for example, don't go off on people. That's always good. And yeah, if you just don't gel, you don't vibe, then maybe steer clear a bit. Yeah, those are kind of my two main things that I took from the book.
So I was in this chat once and during a live stream on YouTube, and everyone started talking about, if you could co-write a book with anybody who's here, who would it be? And a lot of people chose me. And so I was like, why me? Is it because I was writing fantasy, or because I wasn't in fantasy romance yet? This was a little while ago, or maybe I was just starting in it. And then people told me, it's because I know that you're going to get it done. So it's the consistency. So you have to, whatever it is that you're trying to promote about yourself, you have to be consistent with it. So, and I think that for me comes down to, here's my catchphrase for this book: lead with value. So if you're offering value and you lead with that, that's going to draw people into your network, I believe. And you stay consistent to what it is that you stand for. Again, I never thought about networking as networking, but I always thought about what can I learn from others? And then when I would learn, like what Ben's doing, how can I help others with what I've learned? And I always say, I'm not the expert here. I just will share what I know. That's all. Because we all have our own author journeys. We're all going to have different, different things are going to happen, consequences or benefits or whatever will happen from the same action. Some things work for some authors and some don't. But it doesn't mean that we can't share our knowledge so we can see what might work for us or what might not work for us. So lead with that value and be consistent. And that's what I would say. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our questions. We did have so many more questions, but I think we had a great discussion and, just informally talking about Dale's book and hitting on some things that we didn't necessarily hit in our videos, which I really appreciate. And so I want to say thank you to Ben for joining me on this off-season episode. He's usually not here with us. And then, of course, to my guests, DL, Devon, and Andy. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today to talk about this book.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here again and talk about the book. As you know, I've followed all of Dale's books and done reviews for all of them. And it's been really helping me on my author journey. Even when we have been doing it for X amount of years and, you feel like you know enough in this particular topic, you just don't. So I'm really glad that Dale's books are here to help us. And as I always said in a lot of my videos, give me another piece of armor that I needed. So
yeah,
there's no such thing as not enough information, especially when it comes from others who have already put themselves out there and can share their knowledge. It's always good to have.
Yeah, completely agree with you, you guys. And Shannon, absolutely, if you lead a value, you can't really go wrong. And that's kind of what I try and do on my channel as well, which is, look, I'm not an expert, but this is what I've done, this is what worked for me. And, it may not work for everyone, that's always true, but I'm just sharing. And if you want to go and try it, by all means, you don't have to, I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. And yeah, I just try and do my best as much as I can. And like you say, lead a value and try and serve others first. And I feel you can't really go wrong with that. Like, I'm not trying to push someone down. I'm trying to lift people up. And I feel really strongly that when you start from that point in your life, trying to lift people up, you can't really go too far wrong. Yeah.
So don't be a jerk. Serve others first. Natural networking. Lead with value. We still need one from you, Devon. But we could get it from you. Did you come up with one? It's okay. You don't have to. If you
even lessons learned. So if something didn't work, you can tweak it to make it work.
So even lessons learned. Okay. All right. So everything for myself and Ben, of course, and then all of our guests, we have links for all of us down in the show notes and in the description box on YouTube. So this wraps up the last off-season episode for season 6, but we'll be back in 2 weeks on July 1st. That starts season 7. And we are going to be interviewing Elaine Canyon. And we just did have her on to talk about shoestring budget and how to self-publish on a shoestring budget. And we got some great information from that interview with her. And this time we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about how you can do your own audiobooks, which I'm looking forward to. And that also helps with keeping your costs low. So that will do it. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much to our incredible listeners and viewers for joining us on our exploration of everything self-publishing. We hope you found our podcast to be a treasure trove of insights and inspiration. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform or thanks on our YouTube episodes. Don't forget, you can catch all of our past episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms. Keep writing, keep publishing, and we'll see you next time.